This is the way it feels to move through summer in Lululemon. Iconic Align softness without the front seam. For our smoothest look and feel ever, summer won't know what hit it. Stretch your limits in the non-stop flexibility of the new Lululemon Align No-Line Pant in select stores and at Lululemon.com.
At Chipotle, we also have a playlist. Guacamole as it's being hand-mashed. The sizzle of adobo chicken on the grill. The chopping of onions and cilantro. We call our playlist Real. Order now. Chipotle. For real.
Meet the most capable CR-V Honda has ever dreamed of. The all-new CR-V Trail Sport Hybrid. With all-terrain tires and available enhanced traction control, it's built for wherever the day takes you. Heated front seats and a heated steering wheel, ideal for winter drives and crisp early starts. And with generous cargo space, it's ready for big gear and even bigger getaways. The CR-V Trail Sport Hybrid. Learn more at honda.com/CRV.
EVO. This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. Naples, the Bourbon Court, mid-18th century. It was a time of velvet excess and powdered masks, of wine-dark corridors and gilded secrets. They called Naples the Pearl of the Mediterranean, a crown jewel in the Bourbon dynasty, a playground for artists, diplomats, and kings. But beneath the chandeliers and harpsichords, something moved with clawed feet and sharpened hunger. From within the Caserta Palace, a Baroque wonder modeled on Versailles, there were corridors not found on any map. Tunnels that pulsed, not with politics, but with appetite. And when the moon turned fat over the Bay of Naples, the walls trembled, not from music, but from growls. They whispered that nobility had made a pact, that monsters danced in silks, that some marriages were more than political. They were ancestral. Welcome back to The Devil Within European Vacation. You're listening to Blood in the Olive Grove, Part 2. This is Chapter 1, The Werewolves of Naples. In 1747, Queen Maria Amalia, wife of Charles VII, hosted a feast known in whispers as La Cena Rosa, the Red Dinner. It was meant to honor a visiting Spanish nobleman. The menu was sumptuous: veal and blood orange glaze, lamb spiced with cloves, pomegranates split open like wounded hearts. The wine flowed, the harps played, masks were worn longer than the masquerade. But one servant, a young man named Enzo, told a stable boy that what he had carved on the head table was not veal. He vanished that night. Later, when the dining hall was scrubbed for the next affair, a housekeeper found claw marks etched into the wood beneath the queen's place, in a stain, deep red, that no soap could lift. Ferdinand IV, who would one day rule Naples and Sicily, had a brother that few spoke of, Giovanni. He was tall, sharp-featured, and reclusive. He rarely appeared during the day, and when he did, he stood in the shadows of balconies, and he always wrapped himself in fur-lined cloaks. His eyes, according to one court painter, were like burning honey in a storm. He spoke little, but he listened intently, to whispers, to heartbeats. A court physician's private notes, later recovered in a Vatican archive, recorded that Giovanni didn't age like other men, that his strength was beyond reason, that he once bent an iron candelabra into a perfect spiral. By 1753, servants no longer walked near his quarters after sunset, and the rumors grew teeth that he was not merely royal, but cursed. In 1761, the Teatro di San Carlo, Naples' Grand Opera House, hosted La Incoronazione di Poppia. Among the performers was a soprano named Lucia Belladonna. Her voice was said to call tears from stones. After her final aria, she stepped off stage and was seen leaving with a tall man cloaked in black. Witnesses noted his gloved hand, the way he bowed without blinking, and the way Lucia smiled as though in trance. She was never seen again. The next morning, a hand, cleanly severed, was found on the opera house roof, still bearing Lucia's jeweled ring. In her dressing room, a note was discovered, in blotted ink, written in a trembling hand. Quote, "He sang to me in a voice that was not his." Some said she'd been seduced, others said devoured. But the performance went on, as it always did. In 1780, a French chemist and physician named Bastien Lavoie arrived in Naples under royal invitation. He was known across Europe for his controversial thesis that lycanthropy, the transformation into wolf, wasn't folklore, but a mutation of the blood. He set up a lab in the palace crypt, and by some accounts he was given samples, vials of darkened blood, rumored to have come from Prince Giovanni himself. Lavoie documented strange phenomena. One sample twitched in direct sunlight. Another grew thick, bristled hair within its sealed vial. The third shattered its container completely. Lavoie wrote fervently, "It's not a sickness," he declared. "It's a selection." A week later, he was gone. His notes ended mid-sentence. The ink trailed off like a scream. By 1792, Giovanni's presence had become untenable. Guests refused invitations, priests muttered warnings, the palace staff shrank by half. At the Queen's insistence, a young exorcist was summoned from Brienza, Father Marco di Brienza, fresh from theological training, idealistic and naive. He was brought to Giovanni's chamber, and he emerged 3 days later, shattered. What occurred behind those locked doors remains complete conjecture, but Father Marco left Naples immediately, barefoot and babbling. In his final diary entry, written in charcoal on the walls of a monastery in Basilicata, he scrawled, "The moon is no longer our sister. It is our queen." He died a week later, and the cause was never recorded. Chapter 2. The Beast of Garfagnana. Tuscany, 1945. The Garfagnana Valley, a rugged spine of pine and stone where war clung longer than peace. Snow covered the hills like gauze over a wound, but nothing could conceal what prowled beneath. The war was ending, Mussolini's grip was breaking, the Germans retreated north, but in the woods between Lucca and the Apuan Alps, something else moved. The partisans spoke of it in hushed tones. American soldiers, they dismissed it as superstition. But after the fifth body was found, even hardened men admitted, this wasn't a man. At least, not anymore. January 1945. A dawn as gray as slate. Private Enzo Ferretti was found near Castiglione, his body half buried in snow. And he was missing his heart. His ribs jutted outward like broken teeth. No shell casings, no footprints. Just the steam of fresh blood rising into the cold air like incense. A shepherd, old Vittorio, spat on the ground and crossed himself. "The beast has returned," he whispered. The local priest scoffed. "Wolves," he said. "Just hungry," he said. But then a second corpse was found, and a third, each more mutilated than the last, each with less left behind. The 92nd Infantry Division, the Buffalo Soldiers, had been assigned to patrol the sector. Most were young black Americans far from home, fighting fascism in a language not their own. Sergeant James Holloway didn't believe in monsters. Well, until he saw one. In a letter dated February 8th, he wrote, "It moved like it knew the forest better than the trees. Big, tall, not clumsy. It stood like a man, but its arms were wrong. Too long, too fluid. And it looked at me. Not like prey, like a rival, like it knew my name." Holloway never fired. He didn't freeze. He submitted. And the creature walked away. The resistance fighters had little patience for legends. They set a trap in March. Fresh goat meat, iron snares, tripwire grenades. They posted lookouts. They sharpened their knives. But what they found the next morning was silence. The snares were empty. The grenades had gone off. But no blood was found. No fur. No trace. Except for one thing. Giorgio Mancini, hung from a pine like a butchered hog. His face had been removed, not cut, peeled. The men who found him didn't speak. One wept, another ran into the forest, never to return.
Hey there, travelers. Kaylee Cuoco here. Sorry to interrupt your music, great artist BT Dubs, but wouldn't you rather be there to hear it live? With Priceline, you can get out of your dreams and into your dream concert. They've got millions of travel deals to get you to that festival, gig, rave, sound bath, or sonic experience you've been dreaming of. Download the Priceline app today, and you can save up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights. So don't just dream about that trip. Book it with Priceline.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Trace Distillery. Powerful yet smooth. Contained but never tame. Proudly going their own way, but never going alone. This is the spirit inside Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Made at Buffalo Trace Distillery, the world's most award-winning distillery. Buffalo Trace is always perfectly untamed. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Franklin County, Kentucky. 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. Learn more at buffalotracedistillery.com. Please drink responsibly.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
No matter how you travel, it's good to have a plan. Some people plan every minute. No sleep, bus, museum, another museum. While others only plan to take it day by day. When it comes to your finances, a plan is just as important. You can count on Credit Karma to give you the insights you need to understand your options, so you can take charge of your financial path and find your way to money. Explore how you can make financial progress with confidence today. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on.
Among the villagers was a young woman named Lucia Ardenti. She kept a journal, written in small, neat script, tucked beneath the floorboards of her home. Her father had gone missing the previous autumn. A hunter, proud and cautious. Lucia didn't believe in war monsters. Again, until she did. She wrote, "They say it walks on 2 legs by day and 4 legs by night, and that it sings, that it whispers, that it's not angry, it's just lonely." Lucia began researching old folktales, stories of soldiers lost in the woods, turned by hunger and grief into something else. Not ghosts, certainly not men, but wolves of vengeance. She claimed the creature was once a man, a soldier in fact, left to rot after the retreat, and the forest took him back. 3 days after her final entry, she disappeared. Her journal was found near the tree line beside claw marks gouged into stone. April came, then May. The Germans surrendered. the Americans left and the forest went quiet. But Garfagnana did not forget. The paths were rerouted. Garlic was strung on doorways, iron nails hammered into the frames. No one hunted past dusk, and no one whistled after dark. Once a year, on the winter solstice, the villagers gather in silence. They light a bonfire near the edge of the woods. They say nothing at first, then one by one, they whisper the same words. May he sleep. Because some wounds don't heal, some men don't return, and some of the beasts have never left. Ever felt something watching you in the woods? Maybe something that once wore a uniform? Email us at info@evocreative.com and follow us at The Devil Within Pod on Instagram. And leave a review, especially if your nightmares wear dog tags. Chapter 3. The Shepherd and the Skinwalker. Abruzzo, late 1800s, a land divided by cliffs and customs, by sacred sites and shadowed superstitions. The Magella Mountains cut across the region like the spine of an old god, and in those crags lived shepherds, solitary men who spoke more to their flocks than to one another. They understood silence, they revered routine, and they trusted only the stars above. But even among the stone huts and wind-swept paths, fear had a name. And when one of their own returned from a 3-day disappearance, changed in small but chilling ways, they remembered that name. Skinwalker. Not just a tale whispered to frighten children, but a force that moved beneath the skin. Matteo Rinaldi was 28 and had never left the mountains. He knew every bend of every trail, every bleat of his goats, every echo his dogs made as they chased foxes through snow. On a bright October morning, he left his family hut near Pacentro and led his flock toward the high groves. The sun was sharp, the wind mild. His sister packed his lunch, as always: rye bread, hard cheese, dried figs. He said he'd be back by nightfall. And he never returned. That night, his dogs came back alone. One limped. The other howled and wouldn't stop howling. The goats returned in waves over the next 2 days, frightened and scattered. Matteo's walking stick was found snapped in half beside a gnarled pine known to local hunters as l'albero muto, the mute tree. It was a place animals avoided. The villagers searched, but they found no blood, they found no footprints, just the stick and a lingering smell that they couldn't name. But on the 4th morning, Matteo returned. His face was clean, his coat was whole, but there was something behind his eyes that hadn't come back with him. Matteo spoke, but not as himself. He used strange words, and his voice cracked in weird places. He gestured with his left hand, though he'd been right-handed his whole life. He used to hum when he walked, but now he moved in silence. He slept on his back, whereas before he'd always curled up on his side. His sister said his eyes weren't brown anymore, but were flecked with yellow, like the wild cats that prowled near the cliffs. And the goats feared him. Even his dogs cowered and whimpered when he came around. The priest came to visit, and he asked Matteo to pray. Matteo nodded, and then, without pause or flourish, recited the Lord's Prayer, backwards. The priest dropped his crucifix and left without speaking. Winter fell hard across the Apennines that year. The winds snapped shutters from windows and carved grooves into snowdrifts. Then came the sightings. Children said they saw a man-shaped figure crawling on all fours through the fields, not running, not walking, crawling. One girl claimed it sniffed the air like a dog. Another boy swore it was on his rooftop, watching them through a window. When approached, it vanished. Then a goat was found inside out. Not butchered, not devoured, just inverted. Matteo was seen in the village that same morning, standing still, watching the chapel, smiling. Nonna Bice was 92 and blind in one eye, but she remembered things others had forgotten. She told the townspeople that the man they called Matteo wasn't Matteo, that he wore Matteo like a shirt, like a skin. She called it un ladro di carne, a thief of flesh. She told them to gather ash, salt, and iron nails, to place them beneath Matteo's bed, to burn laurel, and then watch the flame. That night, 5 men crept to his hut, and they placed those things under the bed. They whispered prayers older than Latin. But in the morning, the hut was empty. No blood, no body, only scorched ground where the bed had been. And claw marks on the inside of the door. So no one ever saw Matteo again. But the village changed. Men began sleeping in circles with their backs together. Mothers hung knives above cradles. Priests blessed the fields at dusk instead of dawn. They said the creature didn't kill. It traded places. It waited until someone broke a rule, left the trail, ate uncooked meat, slept without salt. Then it would come. Even today, in the highlands near Pacentro, shepherds carry iron in their pockets, and they whistle songs that no one taught them. And sometimes, just before the fog clears at dawn, travelers swear they see a figure on the trail, cloaked in wool, eyes just too yellow, smile too wide. Because not every man in the mountains is who he claims to be. Some just wear their skins too well. If you've ever looked in the mirror and not recognized your own eyes, email us at info@evocreative.com and follow us at The Devil Within Pod. And leave a review, especially if someone's been whispering your name with your own voice. Thanks for listening to The Devil Within European Vacation. Please share the episode if you enjoyed it, and make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts. The Devil Within is an EVO production recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For EVO Creative, I'm Brandon Morgan, your writer and host.